What do a greasy bag of potato chips and a heavy, acid-filled car battery actually have in common? Seriously, think about it for a second. By the end of this lecture, you're going to understand exactly what connects them, the fundamental framework of physics, and how to apply the scientific method to real-life problems. We are going to break down the underlying rules of the universe, step by step. So let's just jump right in.
So, looking at the question here, a bag of chips and a car battery. On the surface, they seem completely, utterly unrelated, right? One is a salty snack you munch on while binge-watching a show, and the other is this dense, heavy box that cranks your engine. But this comparison actually brings us to a massively important concept that we need to tackle right out of the gate.
Here is the answer. Both of these things contain energy that changes form. And this is a perfect illustration of one of the most foundational principles in all of science, the law of conservation of energy. This law basically says that energy can change forms, but it's never actually lost. It's never destroyed. The calories in those chips, they give your body the kinetic energy to move. The chemical energy trapped inside that battery, it gets converted into electrical energy to start your car. Now, you might be asking, okay, why does this even matter? Well, it matters because apparently random, unrelated things are actually connected by incredibly broad, unified physical laws. And honestly, once you grasp this underlying simplicity, learning physics becomes so much easier than just blindly memorizing formulas.
Okay, Section 1, the rules of the universe.
Now, we live in a hugely complex world, right? But what's really fascinating here is the sheer scale we are dealing with. On one hand, we have the Andromeda Galaxy, literally 2.5 million light-years away. On the other hand, you have a smartphone sitting right there in your pocket. The exact same forces of gravity that cause those distant stars in Andromeda to rotate, those are the exact same physical laws dictating how electricity flows through the microscopic chips in your phone. Nature has this remarkable underlying order. We don't have one set of rules for deep space and a totally different set of rules for Earth. It's one single, unified rulebook for the entire universe.
Moving on to Section 2. What exactly is physics?
I know a lot of students hear the word physics and immediately picture dense, impossible equations scribbled all over a dusty chalkboard. But let's completely reframe that right now. Physics is simply the science describing the interactions of energy, matter, space, and time. Put more simply, it's our pursuit of understanding the fundamental mechanisms behind, well, literally every single phenomenon. It isn't just math for the sake of math, it is the ultimate tool we have for describing reality itself.
Let's make this a bit more concrete with a real-life example. Think about the GPS tracking on your phone. When you map out a route to a new restaurant, physics is actively describing the exact relationship between the speed of your car, the distance you have to travel, and the time it takes to get there. The GPS is actively utilizing these specific physics equations to calculate your arrival time on the fly. So the big takeaway here is that you absolutely do not need to be in a white lab coat to use physics. It is actively working behind the scenes in your everyday life.
Section 3, the scientific method.
So, now that we know what physics is, how do scientists actually figure all these rules out? Well, they use a logical framework called the scientific method. It basically follows 4 main steps: observation, hypothesis, experiment, and conclusion. Let's connect this to a real-life problem. Imagine you get into your car, turn the key, and nothing. Total silence. First, you make an observation. Okay, my car won't start. Next, you form a hypothesis, a potential explanation. Maybe it's out of oil. To test this out, you do an experiment. You pop the hood and check the dipstick. Finally, you draw a conclusion. You see the oil level is perfectly fine, so the oil is not the culprit. From there, you troubleshoot further with a brand new hypothesis. And you know what? Scientists use this exact same cyclical process to gather information about the entire universe.
Section 4, Models, Theories, and Laws.
So, what happens after we gather all of that experimental data? We have to organize it. Now, wait, this is important, so pay close attention to the question here. Wait, isn't a theory just a guess? I hear this student confusion all the time, constantly. In everyday conversation, your friend might say, "Oh, I have a theory about who stole my lunch from the fridge," and they just mean they have a hunch. But in science, the word theory means something entirely different. Let's clear this up right now by breaking down 3 very specific scientific terms. First up, we have a model. A model is a representation of something that is just way too difficult or sometimes completely impossible to display directly. Think of that classic planetary drawing of an atom. You know, the one with electrons orbiting a nucleus, almost like planets orbiting the sun. We cannot actually observe electron orbits directly with our own eyes because they are unimaginably small. But this visual model helps us form a mental image so we can understand complex stuff like the behavior of gases or how light is emitted. Next, we have a theory.
Now, a theory is an explanation for patterns in nature that is heavily supported by scientific evidence and has been verified multiple times by various independent groups of researchers. It is absolutely not a guess. A theory is a complex, robust, and dynamic explanation for an entire group of related phenomena. The theory of relativity or the theory of evolution. Those are prime examples. They aren't guesses. They encompass massive amounts of verified data.
And finally, we have a law. Contrast this directly with a theory. A law uses highly concise language to describe a generalized pattern in nature, and honestly, it's most often expressed as a single mathematical equation. For instance, Newton's second law of motion is neatly, elegantly summarized as force equals mass times acceleration, or F equals ma. So the rule of thumb here. A law describes a single action, usually with math, whereas a theory is a much broader, more complex explanation for a wide range of observed phenomena.
All right, Section 5, Classical versus Modern Physics.
Over centuries, applying that scientific method has resulted in an absolutely incredible body of knowledge. But our knowledge actually has some strict boundaries. The physics developed from the Renaissance all the way to the end of the 19th century is what we call classical physics. It is incredibly accurate, but only under some very specific limits, which you can see right here. Matter has to be moving at speeds less than about 1% of the speed of light. The objects must be macroscopic, meaning large enough to be seen with a standard microscope. And they can only involve weak gravitational fields, like the one we experience every day here on Earth. Because we humans live our entire lives exactly within these specific limits, classical physics feels extremely intuitive to us. It just makes sense.
But what happens when we step outside of those limits? Well, that requires modern physics. As you can see in our comparison, modern physics branches into two main revolutionary theories. First, we have relativity, which we absolutely must use whenever an object is traveling incredibly fast, like greater than 1% of the speed of light, or if it's experiencing a massive gravitational field, like right near the sun. Second, we have quantum mechanics, which is strictly used for the microscopic, things much smaller than what can be seen with a standard microscope. Basically, when things get ultra-fast or ultra-tiny, classical physics completely breaks down, and these modern rules have to take over.
Section 6. Summary and next steps.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, from the basic definition of our subject to the very outer limits of human physical knowledge. So, let's summarize your core takeaways. Number 1, nature is not chaotic. It actually exhibits a beautiful underlying order and simplicity. Number 2, physics is the practical tool we use to define the interactions of energy, matter, space, and time within that order. And number 3, we heavily rely on the scientific method to gather evidence, and then we organize that knowledge into visual models, overarching theories, and concise mathematical laws. And remember, if an experiment ever contradicts a well-established law, the law is what has to change. Science is always adapting to new evidence.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. If physics perfectly describes the entire universe, how do we actually measure it? We need a universally agreed upon language of numbers and units just to make sure a scientist in Tokyo and a scientist in London are talking about the exact same thing. Figuring out how we standardize those measurements is exactly what we are going to uncover in our next explainer on physical quantities and units. I highly encourage you to watch that lecture next because it provides the crucial mathematical tools you're going to need for absolutely everything else we study. Thanks so much for learning with me.